Chapter 847 The Plan. Haha. A bunch of bastards running faster than rabbits. Didn't you all curse nonstop? Let's see who's the son of a bitch. Old General Zhou laughed. The emperor also smiled when he saw this. He stood up and said, "Uncle, let's go back. When we return, we can discuss how to fight the next battle." "All right, it just so happens that you guys are tired from traveling for days. Let's rest early." After Old General Zhou finished speaking, he followed them down the city walls. After returning to the general's residence, the emperor and Zhou Huaiming first visited Zhou Huayu. Although he didn't look well, he was still in good spirits, and the two of them heaved a sigh of relief. When Zhou Huayu saw them enter, he immediately went forward and bowed. "Cousin, you don't have to be so polite. How's your wound recovering?" the emperor asked after helping him up. "There's nothing for the emperor to worry about. Mother God's medicine is really good. My wounds are almost healed. If I don't do intense exercise, they'll be fine." "Great. You should rest well and help us manage the rear. As for the battle, leave it to us." "Yes, I will definitely take care of the internal affairs. Let's go. Let's draft a rough plan." The emperor went straight to the meeting hall and called all the people above the rank of general over. He carefully studied the terrain of the North Pass, including every small path. He even learned about the situation on the northern continent. After learning that the king of the northern continent had brought another 100,000 troops this time, a total of 300,000 troops, he raised his head and said, "It seems that the northern continent really wants to swallow my dynasty." The number of soldiers on his side, including the ones he brought along, was only 220,000. In terms of numbers, there was still a huge gap. This is also what this old minister is worried about, so I have been avoiding this battle. I wanted to wait for you to come over and ask how we should fight this battle and to what extent. The northern continent has repeatedly invaded our borders, and they want me dead. This new king is a warmonger. Since he has his eyes on our country, it will be difficult for us to have a stable life. In that case, we will not only defend but also attack. We will beat him until he surrenders so that the border will not be harassed for at least 20 years. Your Majesty is wise. The generals agreed in unison. Go down and prepare. Train your soldiers well. When the time comes, we will be able to show our great Ming dynasty's power. Roger that. The generals immediately dispersed. Have you finished investigating the spies in the army? The emperor stopped Old General Zhou and asked. Your Majesty, I found 5 people. One of them was arranged by King Hui. However, I'm not sure if there are any more. Let them be dead chess pieces. In the future, only tell the commander the battle plan before going to the battlefield. Other than that, keep it a secret. Also, the kitchen and the military doctors must be strictly investigated. Understood. I will go down and make arrangements. Old General Zhou left quickly. After the emperor washed up, he ate and went to sleep. On the other side, the king of the northern continent was furious after he returned. He turned to look at King Hui. King Hui, what did they throw earlier? Why did it smell so pungent? If I'm not wrong, there should be 2 things thrown. The pungent smell should be made of chili powder. The other is filled with drugs, which is why many fainted. King Hui replied. Did the Ming dynasty already have this kind of thing long ago? The king of the northern continent asked again. Chapter 848 Lowering Vigilance. Yes, it was originally created by a couple for self-defense, King Hui said in a deep voice. Later, it came into the hands of my third brother and was made into an explosive. If not for this thing, I would not have been defeated. Why didn't you say so earlier? Otherwise, we wouldn't have been so defenseless. The king of the northern continent replied unhappily. The key was that this defeat was simply too embarrassing. His prestige would also be greatly reduced. Who would have thought that they would use these useless things on the battlefield? King Hui replied with a dry laugh. He thought of something and asked, "Oh right, did your spies send any news back these 2 days? I have a feeling that they've incoming reinforcement. Moreover, it's very likely that they're my third brother's direct subordinates." When the king of the northern continent heard this, he realized that he had not received any news from the other side for a few days. Did something happen? Or was there no news to send? No, something must have happened. Otherwise, the news of the army's arrival would have been sent over. Have you received any news from the other side these few days? He asked the scout leader. Your Majesty, ever since the ambush was successful, the city has been sealed. Our people can't enter, and none of them have come out, so we haven't received any news. In other words, we lost contact? Yes, it has been more than 10 days. What are you doing? The battlefield is constantly changing, and there has been no news for more than 10 days. You're not even reporting it or thinking of a solution. Are you looking for death? The scout captain broke out in a cold sweat and stammered. I've tried to contact them several times, but I haven't been able to get in touch. Hurry up and contact them. Remember, regardless of whether you can contact them or not, you have to report to me every morning and night. Yes. The captain saluted and immediately ran out. The king of the northern continent looked at his back and was furious. At the same time, he realized that he had let down his guard because of the Ming dynasty's delay in accepting the challenge. Otherwise, he would not have ended up in this position. It seemed that this battle was much more difficult than he had imagined. He looked at King Hui, who was sitting quietly at the side. Don't you have people on your side? Try to contact them. We must know how many reinforcements the other party has sent as soon as possible. Also, how many of those explosives did they use up today? Otherwise, we'll be in a passive position. Let me try. King Hui nodded and returned to his courtyard. First, he went back to his room and wrote a small note. He went to his room, caught a carrier pigeon, put the note into the carrier tube, and released the carrier pigeon. However, as soon as the carrier pigeon entered the city, it was spotted and targeted. After Zhou Xinghe received the news, he immediately followed and destroyed King Hu's stronghold. After a while, another large group of spies was found. After the emperor and the rest had rested, they quickly formulated a battle plan, as the war had officially begun. When Gu Chengrui and his group arrived at the border, they encountered a battle that had just ended, so they immediately joined the rescue team. On this day, Zhou had just cooked some dried sweet potatoes and planned to give them to the servants to taste when suddenly, Gu Wanning's eunuch's son, ran over in a hurry. Madam Gu, hurry up and follow me to the palace. What's wrong? Did something happen? Zhou asked. It's hard to explain. Anyway, the Empress has something to say to you. All right, wait a moment. The grapes are ripe, so let me bring 2 bunches of grapes for the eldest princess. After Zhou finished speaking, she asked someone to bring the grapes quickly. She also prepared some dried sweet potatoes. Chapter 849, Relieving Worries at the Same Time. Zhou also spread out her divine sense to look into the palace. Gu Wanning was fine when she checked in the morning. What happened less than 4 hours later? She was shocked when she saw it. Gu Wanning's face was pale, and she was lying on the bed with a tired expression. Was she sick? She carried the things she had prepared and followed Eunuch's son into the palace. After entering the palace, she handed the things to Chuanxi and entered the room, approaching Gu Wanning. After bowing, she went forward and asked, Are you not feeling well? Why do you look so pale? It's nothing. It's just that my baby disturbed me. I just need to take some calming medicine. I remember that my cousin knows how to make a kind of calming pill. Gu Wanning then asked, I wonder if you have any? Eunuch's son, sigh. I would have brought it to you directly if you had said so earlier. I didn't allow him to say it. There are many old and young people in the palace. I can't collapse. Did you see the imperial physician? Yes, Imperial Physician Liu gave some to me. He also prescribed some medicine to soothe me, but I didn't want anyone to know, so I couldn't brew the medicine. You are too cautious. No, the people in the palace have recently been a little unstable. I don't dare risk the child. What do you mean? Zhou asked in surprise. Although she wasn't as diligent as she was initially, she checked at least 3 times a day, but she had never found any problems. After Gu Wanning finished speaking, she handed her an account book. Zhou opened it and took a look. It was full of the list of goods the palace had purchased. However, there was no problem with the quantity or the price. She looked at her in confusion. Don't look at the price and quantity. Look at the consumption. Zhou looked at it carefully again, especially comparing the head and the tail. She realized that the consumption after the emperor left was similar to the consumption before the emperor left. However, not only did the emperor leave, but he also took eunuch Qian and his guards with him, so that should reduce consumption. Are all items like this? Gu Wanning shook her head. No, it's normal at the silk embroidery workshop. If it weren't for the fact that they had cut down on the autumn clothing production, I wouldn't have remembered people had left the palace. So, it's because of this that your baby and your health are affected? This is not a small matter. They are clearly bullying me. So, send someone to investigate. If the situation is serious, kick them out of the palace. If it's not serious, give them a warning. It's not that easy. There are spies from every province in the palace. There are too many things involved. So, you know who did it, which puts you in a difficult position. Yes, the people we caught this time are the people of the newly appointed Minister of War, Lord Chu. I'm afraid that after I deal with him, it will cause unrest in the imperial court. You're too careful. It's within your duty. He should be punished. If Lord Chu really caused trouble because of this matter, then this person was not worthy of being a second-grade official. Besides, King Xian and King An are watching outside. Do you think he can get away with it if he dares to act recklessly now? Doesn't this Lord Chu have a daughter, Chu Jiao? I heard she was a popular candidate for the Empress selection. Zhouing asked. I'm not sure about that, but he was one of the people who suggested the consort selection. So this matter is not easy to deal with. With your position, you're destined not to be benevolent. It's good enough that you can be fair and impartial, rewarding and punishing clearly. Gu Wanning nodded thoughtfully and instructed Nanny Yu to keep an eye outside. Chapter 850. The person behind the scenes. After that, Zhouing comforted her and hurriedly left the palace to bring her a box of 30 calming pills. She also gave her some cream that she had made to replenish her energy. After returning, Zhouing deliberately watched for a day and found that there were many rats. There were even 2 big ones and even more small ones. Especially in the imperial kitchen, everyone brought home a lot of things. No wonder Gu Wanning was so angry that her health was affected. Fortunately, she took action that night. Gu Wanning directly led the steward of the imperial kitchen and caught several mice in a row. After a round of interrogation, not only did they receive 20 whips, but they also had to make up for it. At the same time, they strengthened the patrols and warned everyone. They did not pursue the matter anymore. One of the chefs in the imperial kitchen had a look of lingering fear on his face. After dodging the calamity, he found an imperial guard and whispered, "Brother, you've heard about what happened tonight, right? Tell my lord that this matter ends here. Otherwise, I'm afraid I won't be able to keep my job." "All right, thank you. They'll bring you 2 jars of good wine when I'm free." After saying that, the imperial guards quickly went back to patrol. After changing shifts in the evening, he went straight home. Only then did Zhouing know that this imperial guard was one of Lord Chu's sons-in-law, the second son-in-law of the Minister of War. They had done this in the hopes that the Empress would make a mistake and cause trouble for the Empress Dowager or King Xian, ruining her reputation. They did not expect Gu Wanning to act so quickly. His wife asked, "I didn't expect the Empress to act so quickly. Should we find trouble with her in other ways?" "No. Once she becomes alert, we won't have the chance to make a move. If they find out that it's us, it'll be a small matter if we lose our jobs, but it'll be troublesome if we lose our lives. Is it that serious? What do you think? Anyway, this matter ends here. Don't get involved with your sister. The Emperor is obviously biased towards the Empress. It's not that easy for her to ascend." "But, sleep." Zhouing looked at the Chu residence and found Chu Jiao. At this time, she was sitting in front of the lamp, practicing her embroidery skills. However, her embroidery skills were not really good. She was not much better than a beginner. She even yawned as she embroidered. A servant girl walked over and said, "Miss, it's late. You should continue tomorrow. It's not good for your health. There are less than 2 months until the consort selection. If I don't practice now, how can I have a chance? I don't want to lose to these basic skills." Chu Jiao replied without raising her head. She yawned with tears and continued to embroider. "Miss, you can't embroider anymore. Hurry up, wash up, and rest. All right, I got it. Chu Jiao relented, finally put down the embroidery rack, and washed up. After she fell asleep, Zhouing entered her dream to warn her. The dream she weaved was simple. Chu Jin dreamed she was selected through the consort selection through all her outstanding efforts. After she finally entered the palace, she was greeted not by the emperor on the night of her wedding but by a toad. When Chu Jin woke up in fright, Zhouing retreated with a smile. This was a small warning. If Chu Jiao continued her sabotage, Zhouing wouldn't be so kind again. After that, Chu Jiao couldn't sleep no matter how she tried, even though she was tired. She couldn't understand why she dreamed of that. Did that dream have any meaning? Chapter 851 returned thinking of this. She couldn't fall asleep. The next morning, Chu Jiao went to find her mother after breakfast. When Mrs. Chu heard this, she slapped her thigh and exclaimed, "Isn't this a dream of a toad lusting after the swan? Why would you have such a dream? Don't worry, you're still the daughter of a second-grade official. While you can't be the empress, you can still be a consort." Not only was Chu Jiao not comforted, but she was angered. Was she a toad? Unfortunately, this was her biological mother, so she couldn't refute her. She could only say a few polite words and leave with a stomach full of anger. After that, she did not dare to ask anyone else. Instead, she silently went back to her room to practice her calligraphy. She had to calm her heart down as soon as possible. Otherwise, even she herself would feel like a toad. Zhouing didn't know that this dream that had hit her made Chu Jiao uneasy. Instead, she stared at the palace thoughtfully. 3 days later, she was relieved that Gu Wanning was fine. Early in the morning, Zhouing was about to head out to the manor when she suddenly saw Tiger and 10 other people slowly escorting 2 carriages over. When the carriage stopped, Gu Chenglin and Gu Chengxi got off the carriage one after another. "You guys are finally back. You've tanned a lot and lost a lot of weight. You must have suffered a lot." Zhouing greeted him with a smile. "I've suffered quite a bit, but it's definitely worth it. It's also an eye-opener," Gu Cheng said happily. "Indeed, it's really a different life. It's much livelier than staying in the capital. I've also discovered many things worth pondering over," Gu Chenglin added. Servant Shizhu greets mistress. At this moment, Shizhu carried a small bag and walked down from the carriage behind her. Zhouing looked at her clumsy appearance and smiled. "Are you pregnant?" "Mistress, it's been almost 5 months. Oh right, there are many gifts that Master brought for you and Miss in the carriage." At this moment, Tiger and the others also stepped forward and pulled out a rattan box from each side of the carriage. "Hurry up and enter the residence to have a good rest. I'll get someone to arrange a meal for you." After Zhouing finished speaking, she walked inside with Shizhu. Gu Qingxi and Gu Qinglin didn't stand around either. They called out to Tiger and walked in. After the meal, Zhouing thought that Gu Chengxi and Gu Qinglin would rest. She did not expect them to go out to look for their teacher. Meanwhile, she checked the things that Gu Chengrui had bought. There was exquisite embroidery from the south, matching clothes for her and Guagua, as well as some high-quality materials and beautiful jewelry. There were also toys for Guagua, such as bamboo whistles, skip ropes, and all kinds of toys. She asked Kuei-hua to put it away and instructed Chunyang to send the autumn clothes she had prepared to Gu Qinglin and the others. She then rushed to the manor to do her tasks. On a night 3 days later, Zhouing received Gu Shengrui's urgent call as soon as she entered the inner space. She immediately went to the warehouse and searched through the many mother temples. Finally, she found Gu Chengrui brewing medicine in the kitchen of the general's residence. She asked, "What's the matter? Why are you looking for me so urgently?" "Babe, hurry up and get a tetanus shot. Zhou Huaiming is seriously injured." "Wait a moment." After Zhouing finished speaking, she handed him the shot. Gu Chengrui received it and hid it in his sleeve. He boiled the medicine, brought it to her room, and said to the "Old General, we still have to fight tomorrow. You should go and rest quickly. Leave Brother Zhou to me. I'll have to trouble you. If you need anything, just let me know." Old General Zhou stood up and said. He then looked at Zhou Huaiming with reluctance and turned to leave. Chapter 852 August Gifts. After he left, Gu Chungrui first fed the medicine to the unconscious Zhou Huaiming, then gave him the tetanus shot. What happened? Zhouing asked after he was done. How did he get so badly injured? He was injured when he went to the mountain to guard that position. Because he delayed the treatment, he got infected. I see. By the way, do you lack medicine at the border? Do you want me to take some from the inner space and send it to you? That's good. Now that there's a war here, there's not much stock left. Send some over. Oh right, also send me some more tear powder. Zhouing nodded. She picked out a batch of medicinal herbs that he could use, especially the medicinal herbs needed for stopping bleeding, and placed them directly in the general's residence. Gu Chungrui yawned. I've been very busy recently. I'm afraid I won't have the chance to contact you much. They'll leave the family to you. Got it. How's the war going? Any progress? 2 wins and 1 loss. There are more people over there, so I'm afraid it will take some time. Got it. Rest well. After Zhouing said her goodbyes, she withdrew and began to busy herself with other things. One day, Zhouing was doing the accounts when Xiaoxiang ran over and knocked on her door. Mistress, Mrs. Yao is here. Mrs. Yao? Does she want something? No. She came here to send gifts for the August festival. We should also start preparing for that. Ask them to wait for a moment. They'll be right there. Zhouing returned to the main room after checking the accounts at hand. Madam, Mrs. Yao and Mrs. Yang stood up immediately when they saw her come in. Have a seat. Is everything all right at home? Zhouing asked Xiaoxiang to prepare some fruits. It's all right. Our family opened a grocery store and sold some goods from the south and north. Business is not bad. That's good news. You guys can be considered to have established yourselves in the capital. Yes, I'm finally not that anxious anymore. By the way, do you have any plans for Qinglin's marriage? Mrs. Yao asked. Did someone ask you about something? Zhouing was stunned for a moment. Yeah, Chengxi and Qinglin aren't young anymore. Someone asked me, so I came to ask for your opinion. Qinglin is still young, so his marriage isn't urgent. Besides, there's still the Emperor and Empress decision. What I mean is that we don't need to care about his marriage. Once it's settled, we can just help arrange it. Mrs. Yao nodded after hearing this. She thought that since Gu Qinglin was on her side, she would be the one to decide on his marriage. It seemed that she was wrong. As for Chengxi's marriage, Zhouing continued, you, second uncle, and auntie's son need to be involved. As long as you don't look for our sworn enemies, you can decide. However, marriage is a lifelong event. After all, he has to agree to it himself. Otherwise, it will be troublesome if it becomes a grudge. That's true. Mrs. Yao nodded in agreement. After chatting for a while, they stayed for lunch before leaving. On the way back, Mrs. Yao sighed and said, You should go back to your mother's house and tell them not to have any ideas about Qinglin. I reckon that since Qinglin has the support of the Emperor and Empress, he should at least marry a noble daughter. Got it. Mrs. Yang nodded indifferently. After the previous ups and downs, she did not think it was good for a woman to marry a man in a high position, so she disagreed with her mother's marriage proposal. As soon as they left, Zhouing, Kuehua, and Xiaoxiang also started to get busy preparing the August gifts for each family. Chapter 853 Southwest Fighting, 2.5 months later. Zhouing received Gu Shengrui's call again. She found that the city gates of the northern continent had been broken through, and King Hu's body had been hung on the city gates. Is this battle going to end soon? Zhouing asked. It's still early. The emperor wants to take down the northern continent and make them submit. Gu Chengrui said. I didn't expect the emperor's ambition to be so big. He can't help it. He's annoyed by their constant harassment. They started it. Zhouing nodded in agreement. Oh right, she asked. Why did you look for me? I need more medicinal herbs. There's still a shortage of medicinal herbs. Oh, prepare 2 sets of inner clothes for me. It's tough getting clothes here. Got it. Wait a moment. Zhouing first gave him the medicinal herbs and quickly prepared 2 sets of inner clothes. Finally, she prepared a roasted chicken, apples, pears, grapes, and other fruits for him. Of course, she only prepared enough for him to eat. Is there anything else? She asked after giving him everything. Yes, I miss you, Gu Chengrui said coquettishly. Although they had separated before, they could still see each other at night as long as they were free. However, it was different at the border. He had to hide even when he wanted to say a word, so he really missed her. I miss you too, but the conditions don't allow it. Or you can find a quiet place to wake me up that day. Got it. You go ahead with your work. I have to go and count the medicinal herbs. Gu Chengrue hid the mini Mother God statue and got up to work. Zhouing also left. Thinking of his slim body, she left him some jerky before retreating and looking elsewhere. What she didn't expect was that the southwest side of the country was fighting the western continent, and it seemed pretty fierce. At least in the Ming Dynasty army camp, wounded soldiers were everywhere. After that, she listened carefully to the discussions among the people. Sure enough, the two countries had started fighting. Moreover, the western continent had come in full force with many troops this time. The generals stationed in the southwest could not hold on any longer and had begun to mobilize the garrison troops from the nearby provinces. When Zhouing saw this, she went to the western continent to investigate. It turned out that the western continent knew that the northern continent was fiercely fighting with the Ming Dynasty, and they had reduced crop production a lot this year due to the drought. This was why they wanted to take the opportunity to get a share of the pie. Of course, if possible, they wanted to divide the Ming Dynasty. After understanding what they wanted, Zhouing only sighed. She looked at the East continent. Fortunately, they were stable. Seeing this, she told the emperor about the situation in the southwest. The emperor's expression turned grave. He cupped his fists and said, "Thank you, Mother God, for informing me. I hope that you can help me deliver a letter." After saying that, he quickly wrote a letter. The content was naturally about the deployment of troops. After writing it, he put it away and said, "Please pass it on to King Xian. Aloud, take care." After Zhouing finished speaking, she took the letter away and left some fruits for him before handing the letter to King Xian. King Xian was shocked when he received the letter. At the same time, he also understood why the late and current emperors held Mother God in such high esteem. With Mother God's favoritism, why would their country worry about not being able to unify the world? After that, he called several officials overnight and discussed it for a while. Ultimately, it was decided that the seventh prince would bring Yin Jiwu and 2 generals along to the southwest. Of course, they also brought 100,000 soldiers from Lord Yan's subordinates in the capital. After Zhouing finished her work, she put away everything in her interspace and cooked 2 tender corns. After eating them, she ground some flour before leaving her inner space. Chapter 854 A Spy 1. On the second day, Zhouing just sighed when she knew the seventh prince had brought troops to the southwest. She didn't know how the following days would go. It was the first prince's first birthday in the blink of an eye. Zhouing brought Mrs. Lin, Qiuxiang, and Guagua into the palace early in the morning. Before entering the Phoenix Palace, Guagua saw the first prince learning to walk with a nanny's guidance. She immediately ran over and shouted, "Brother, Guagua is here." Guagua then quickly pulled the first prince into the palace. The nanny was stumped and quickly supported the first prince by lifting his other hand. She looked at Zhouing and greeted her. "Greeting, Mrs. Gu." Zhouing nodded and asked, "Where's the empress?" "She's inside, preparing the first birthday ceremony." "I see, thanks." Zhouing instructed Mrs. Lin to stay behind and look after Gupguo while she and Qiuxiang went in with the grapes. After greeting Gu Wanning, she looked at the table full of things and asked, "Wow, you prepared so much for his first birthday ceremony. Aren't you afraid that he doesn't know what to choose?" As she said that, she put a goose egg-sized pearl on the table. "It's just for fun. There's no need to be so serious about it." Gu Wanning smiled and replied. She then started chatting happily with Zhouing while Guagua carefully guided the first prince into the palace. Gu Wanning's face beamed as she looked at them. Guagua is such a dependable sister. She's already teaching her younger brother how to walk. Younger brother, walk. No, steady. Guagua raised her head and scrunched her brows. He's still young. He'll be able to walk steadily after half a year. Zhouing replied. Guagua heard that and gave the first prince the side eye. She didn't want to play him anymore. The first prince wasn't willing to let her go and just hugged her. Gu Wanning saw this and pointed toward a corner. Guogua, there's a wooden pony there. You can bring your younger brother there and play. Guogua followed where Gu Wanning pointed and saw a red rocking wooden pony. Her eyes lit up and she ran over while the Fist Prince had to catch up with the help of his nanny. Zhouing then looked at Gu Wanning and asked, "How's it been? Is your pregnancy steady?" "Yup, all thanks to you." "No worries, it's what I should do." Soon, Mingyu brought Zhuangzhuang along, with the Grand Empress Dowager and the eldest princess behind them. The children played together lively. Moments later, Consort N and Consort Xian also arrived. Everyone who came to the party added something to the table for the first prince to choose during his ceremony. Very quickly, the choosing ceremony started. The first prince sat on the table, looking at the things and the surrounding people, and clapped happily. Gu Wanning had to point to the table and guide him. Yang, look at the things here. Why don't you choose one that you like?" The first prince only started carefully looking at the stuff and took a red ruby. However, he didn't keep it and passed it to the eldest princess. The Grand Empress Dowager smiled at that. "Good boy. It looks like your big sister didn't love you for nothing. I want one too. Can I?" Yang paused and took a calligraphy brush before passing it to the Grand Empress Dowager. He then grabbed a jade amulet and passed it to Guogua, whom Zhouing was hugging. He also grabbed onto an inkstone and passed it to Mingyu. Mingyu smiled and said, Yang is such a good boy, not leaving even a single friend unattended. Yeah, it's rare for a kid to be this generous. My dumb kid is the exact opposite. He wouldn't let anything that he grabbed onto go." Just as everyone wanted to continue praising the first prince, someone suddenly pulled the tablecloth and flung it away together with the first prince. Chapter 855 A Spy 2. The first prince was thrown into the air to a height above the head of the Grand Empress Dowager, frightening everyone. Seeing this, Zhouing quickly used her divine sense to slow down the first prince's landing speed. At the same time, she stuffed Guogua into the arms of Consort Xian. She then rushed over and caught the first prince with her feet and held him in her arms as she examined him. Gu Wanning came back to her senses and stuttered. How is he? How is he? Is Yang all right?" "He's all right, not injured. However, we should still call the imperial physician over to take a look." After Zhouing replied, she stuffed the first prince into her arms. The first prince also reacted at this moment and cried out loud. His cries were heart-wrenching, and it was obvious that he had been frightened quite badly. The Grand Empress Dowager heaved a sigh of relief and quickly called for a doctor. As long as he was not injured, it was fine. Just as a palace maid was about to run out to report the news, Zhouing suddenly took out a dagger from her boot and stopped the palace maid. Everyone was stunned by that. When they saw the dagger in her hand and were about to persuade her not to overreact, the palace maid dodged her attack and started fighting with Zhouing. Moreover, her martial arts skills were obviously above Zhou Ying's. If not for Zhou Ying's quick reaction, she would obviously not be the palace maid's opponent. "Quick, there's an assassin!" Mingyu shouted at this moment. After handing Zhuangzhuang to Consortin, she also rushed forward. The palace maid knew that Mingyu knew martial arts, so when she saw that she was about to rush over, she planned to end the battle quickly. Otherwise, she wouldn't be able to escape here. Zhouing saw through her intentions, and she did not intend to let her go. She quickly turned her divine sense into a needle and stabbed it into the palace maid's tendons and acupoints on her body. With the help of her divine sense, Zhouing quickly turned the tables. When Mingyu rushed over, the two of them promptly subdued the palace maid. At the same time, Zhouing was afraid that the palace maid might commit suicide, so she stuffed a handkerchief into her mouth. At this moment, the guards rushed in. After they handed the palace maid over to the guards, Zhouing said, "She's proficient at martial arts. Just in case, check her mouth first and administer some muscle relaxant before questioning her." "Thank you for your reminder, Mrs. Gu." After the guard finished speaking, he led his men out. "Well, interrogate her here," the Grand Empress Dowager said in a deep voice. "I want to see who has the guts to try to assassinate the first prince." After saying that, She asked the nannies to take the children away. When the guard saw this, he did not refuse. He dislocated the palace maid's chin on the spot. After examining her, he drugged her and set her chin back on before asking, "Tell me what you know. Otherwise, you won't be able to withstand our torture." The palace maid only glanced at him and said, "Kill or torture me as you please. It's so easy to die. We've always believed in giving a life worse than death." After the guard said this, he asked Eunuch's son for a needle and inserted it into the palace maid's fingernails. He directly jammed it in, so it could never be pulled out. The faces of all the royal women present were as white as paper. At this time, Zhouing also noticed the abnormality because the palace maid's face did not change even after being tortured so cruelly. She went forward and touched her face, then tore off a layer of skin. "Oh, a human skin mask," Mingyu exclaimed. Eunuch's son exclaimed at the same time, "Wait, she doesn't look like a person from our country." When everyone heard this, they took a closer look at the palace maid. As expected, the palace maid's facial features were smaller, her eye sockets were deeper, and her cheekbones were higher. No matter how they looked at it, she did not look like a person from the Great Ming. Chapter 856 Sowing Discord. Tell me, who are you? And why are you here to harm the first prince? The Grand Empress Dowager stepped forward and questioned. "I am an assassin from the southwest border who belongs to King Ning." The palace maid smiled and replied, "You're framing us. That's impossible." Consort Ning retorted angrily. Consort Ning knew that her husband had the intention to fight for the throne from the beginning, and he had prepared a lot. Unfortunately, her father was loyal to the late emperor and did not cooperate. In addition, after the emperor ascended the throne, he did not make things difficult for him and even put him in an important position, so King Ning had long stopped thinking about seizing the throne. How could he turn around and assassinate the first prince at this time? The Grand Empress Dowager and the others did not know if it was true or not, so they could only shut their mouths. Nothing is impossible. Which prince doesn't have the dream of becoming an emperor? Right now, Great Ming and the northern continent are locked in a stalemate, and the southwest is also in a stalemate. Now is the best time for King Ning to seize the throne. The palace maid sneered. Zhouing nudged Gu Wanning when she saw this. It was time for her to express her stance. If, because of this palace maid's few words of provocation, the country that had finally settled down ended up in a civil war, then they would really be in deep trouble. Gu Wanning was stunned, not understanding what Zhouing wanted. Zhouing had no choice but to speak up. "Judging from your obvious big tongue, you must be from the Western continent. I have to say, you've done a good job of sowing discord between us, but you've chosen the wrong target. King Ning is a loyal supporter of the emperor. Otherwise, the emperor would not have passed the military power of the southwest to him. Do you know what you look like right now, you clown?" Zhouing pinched her chin and asked. "You." The palace maid stared at her after hearing that. Gu Wanning also reacted at this moment. She could not expose their flaws without knowing the other party's identity. "Bring all the palace maids who live with her here."
Yes.
Eunuch's son responded and walked out. At this time, everyone also reacted and began to talk about the brotherhood between the emperor and King Ning. Consort Ning felt relieved after hearing this and looked at Zhouing gratefully. Otherwise, she would have been in big trouble. "You know very well whether it's true or not. There's no need to act with me here." The palace maid glanced at everyone provocatively. "Whoever is pretending will be revealed soon. I know that people like you are not afraid of death, but there are still ways to deal with you." As Zhouing said this, she thought of the paper and water method that Gu Chungrui mentioned. However, after taking a glance, she knew the women here couldn't take that. Instead, she turned around and asked Chuanxi to find some ants. Soon, Eunuch's son called the 3 people who lived with her over. When the 3 of them arrived and saw the palace maid, they were honest and quickly confessed everything they knew. About 10 days ago, this spy fell ill. After waking up, she didn't eat anymore. She became more diligent and went out early and returned late every day. What they knew was limited. At this moment, Eunuch's son took out a pair of 3-section undergarments and said, This kind of undergarment is obviously not from our country. At least, it is not something of the palace. Although everyone looked a little embarrassed, they still nodded in agreement. Because they're citizens, regardless of gender or age, war boxers. You still want to keep quiet? We won't be polite now. When the guard saw this, he looked at the spy. There's nothing to say. Please go ahead. After the spy finished speaking, she closed her eyes and acted as if everything had nothing to do with her. At this moment, Chuanchi finally found a bag of ants. Zhouing asked for some honey and quickly made some small cuts on the spy's face, neck, and arms. Then, she smeared some honey on it and placed the ants on her wounds. Chapter 857 Birthday Present. At first, the spy didn't think much of it, but she soon widened her eyes and looked at Zhouing with hatred, because the taste of ants biting was unbearable. When Zhouing saw this, she rolled her eyes at her and said, "What are you looking at? If you do the first, don't blame us for the 15th. This is just the beginning. Use all 18 kinds of torture. I think there will be one that suits you. Since you dare enter the palace to assassinate someone, you have to be prepared to be tortured." After the Grand Empress Dowager said this, she asked Nanny Lu to take the spy away for interrogation. Following that, everyone replaced the things that dropped from the table. However, the first prince was clearly not interested anymore. He grabbed a seal that was near him and did not bother anymore. The Grand Empress Dowager saw this and said, "Forget it. I'm not in the mood after that either. Let's go over and have a good chat." After saying that, she called everyone out. Although they were chatting, they were actually asking about the situation outside the palace and the situation of each family. Inside her room, Gu Wanning was hugging the first prince. She looked at Zhou Ying with a face full of lingering fear. "Thank you so much for today, sister-in-law. If you hadn't reacted so quickly, Yang might have been in trouble." "That's true. That spy isn't weak, and it would be troublesome if Yang had fallen on his head." Mingyu nodded in agreement. He was lucky that he was thrown high, so I had time to rush over and catch him. Zhouing said, I did notice something weird that you brought that up. When the first prince descended, I clearly felt that it was somehow slowed down. Mingyu commented with a face full of question marks. Zhou Ying's heart skipped a beat. She smiled calmly and replied, "Maybe you were scared at that time. Sometimes, when people are scared, they perceive things differently." "Maybe, but no matter what, this is a good thing. Go find 1 or 2 people who know martial arts to accompany the 2 children later." Mingyu looked at Gu Wanning and suggested, "By the way, didn't you train 10 female soldiers?" Zhouing asked, "What are they doing now?" "I sent them to take care of my estate and dowry." Mingyu understood what she meant and said, "They'll transfer 4 back to protect the 2 children. You don't have enough. They'll find someone to specially train a few later." Gu Wanning shook her head at her suggestion. "It's fine for a short while. You can use them for now. When your people are trained, you can return them to me." "Thanks. Don't mind if I do." Gu Wanning thanked Mingyu. After a meal, Zhouing handed Gu Wanning a small box after everyone had dispersed. "This is a birthday present I specially prepared for Yang. You can keep it for him." "What is it?" Gu Wanning asked. "It's for Yang's pocket money." "You're really giving it to him? He's just a child. How can he spend so much?" "You spend it if he can't, so don't reject it. It's better to nurture some confidence quickly. Otherwise, once a new consort enters the palace, you will be in a passive position." "I got it." "Oh, right. How's Qinglin?" "He's doing pretty well in school. I'll keep an eye on his day-to-day. Don't worry. I'll leave him to you, sister-in-law." Gu Wanning nodded. After Zhouing left, she opened the box and took a look. Not only were there 10,000 taels of silver in notes, but there were also some silver hairpins, silver rings, silver earrings, silver coins, and other silver-made products. There was even a box of golden melon seeds. Gu Wanning teared up when she saw this. She thought of what Zhouing had suggested before and immediately called Eunuch's son over. She asked him to contact the Emperor's guards to train 4 female guards who knew martial arts to come in and protect the first prince and the eldest princess. Chapter 858, even more ruthless than Nanny Rong on the other end. After Zhouing left the palace, she looked around curiously and found Nanny Lu and the spy. At this moment, the spy had been stripped naked, and her body was covered in honey. Of course, there were also ants crawling all over him. There were even many needles on her head and hands. Nanny Lu was sitting opposite her, staring at the spy's every move. As long as she dared move an inch, even if she frowned, she would be pricked by Nanny Lu. Tisk, tsk, she's even more ruthless than Nanny Rong, sighed Zhouing. Mommy, who is Nanny Rong? Guogua raised her head and asked. A bad person. She specializes in pricking disobedient children with needles. Zhouing said. Bad person. Guogua doesn't want Nanny Rong. Guogua immediately shouted. Yes, bad person. As long as Guogua is obedient and studies hard, she won't be able to see Nanny Rong. Guogua will be a good girl. Guogua nodded repeatedly. Yes, Guogua is a good child. After Zhouing finished speaking, she gently kissed her on the forehead. When they got home, Zhouing fed Guogua some water and asked Mrs. Lin to bring her down. While she drank her tea, she paid attention to the movements of the spy in the palace. In the end, the spy couldn't take it anymore. She confessed that she was sent by the Western continent and told them how she entered the palace. It turned out that the palace maid she had replaced was a local in the capital. During the disaster years, she entered the palace to avoid starving to death. Over the years, she would go back to visit from time to time, and she was replaced by the spy just recently. As for who her master was, she refused to say anything. She took the opportunity to crash into the wall and die by having the needles on her head pierced into her skull. Mistress, Gu Zhang. Manager Gu requests an audience. Qiu Xiang came in and informed Zhouing. Let him go to the study.
Yes.
Qiu Xiang responded and turned to leave. After Zhouing finished her tea, she got up and went to the study. As soon as she sat down, Qiu Xiang brought Gu Zhang over. Greetings, mistress. Gu Zhang stepped forward and bowed. Have a seat. Qiu Xiang will make a cup of tea. No need. Am not thirsty. Gu Zhang waved her hand. What's the matter? Zhouing waved at Qiu Xiang for her to retreat and asked Gu Zhang. The workshops and shops in the capital have stabilized, and a large portion of our soaps have been sold to other places. So I intend to start expanding. Sure, but you must prevent the recipe from being leaked. Also, you must not make things difficult for others. Of course, if they started it, you don't have to be polite. Yes, I will remember your teachings. I will send 10 guards to follow you and help you run errands. At the same time, when you're in another place, you might also develop some manpower. After all, when you're in their territory, you must retain the ability to protect yourself. Thank you, mistress. I understand. All right, if there's anything you can't solve, just tell me. Sorry to disturb you when you're busy. I'll take my leave now. After Gu Cheng finished speaking, she turned around and walked out. After she left, Zhouing practiced her calligraphy in the study room. She later went to her small laboratory and took 2 cucumbers to try to make a skin tonic. At night, after entering her interspace, Zhouing thought of the spy and went straight to the Western continent. It was a pity that she could not find the spy's master. Instead, she found that the Western continent was getting anxious because the rations were not enough. Thus, they planned to send people to the Great Ming to poison their wells and rivers. Zhouing was furious after hearing this. War was war, as the world was always divided. She did not want to interfere, and she would not. However, using such despicable methods was too much. Chapter 859, Disappearing into Thin Air. Therefore, she struck the person with a lightning bolt and stored all the poison they had prepared in her interspace. With a bolt of lightning, one of the Western continent strategists was struck into a pile of black charcoal. He fell straight to the ground and spat out a mouthful of black smoke, frightening everyone. It also caused a commotion. The general of the Western continent heard the commotion and immediately ran over. He was shocked to see the miserable state of the strategist. He quickly asked, "What happened? Why was he struck by lightning while sitting in the room?" The soldier who served the strategist immediately went forward and bowed. General, I'm not sure either. I just saw a bolt of lightning suddenly rush in from the window. Then, he ended up like this. After hearing this, the general went forward to check. After confirming that the strategist was still alive, he heaved a sigh of relief and then asked someone to help him to a bed. General, the poison that I prepared earlier has disappeared into thin air. A soldier ran in and reported. What do you mean by disappearing into thin air? The general turned his head and asked in confusion. It just disappeared into thin air. We just watched it disappear. The soldier replied in panic. To be honest, if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he wouldn't have believed it. Moreover, in order to make sure that his eyes were not playing tricks on him, he had specially checked and found someone to verify it. The many vats of poison were gone just like that. The general finally panicked. He had heard before that people in the Great Ming had been struck by lightning for no reason several times. Moreover, every time it was Mother God who showed her might. The ones struck were all evil people, or rather, people like King Hui who mistreated human lives. Thinking of this and connecting it to the disappearance of the poison, he finally understood. There was an 80% chance that this was really a punishment from Mother God to prevent them from poisoning a large area. However, given the current situation, would they have to continue wasting time like this? The general was in a dilemma. When the military doctor arrived, the general also helped with the treatment. He went to find the deputy general and the strategists and told them about the matter. It seems that using poison won't work. If you all have any other ideas, you can say it. Isn't this Mother God getting a little out of her reach? A deputy general asked. Don't be rude. The general replied in a bad mood. I agree with Mother God's decision, the military advisor replied. Using poison is too harmful. It will also kill many innocent people and livestock. You're too kind, the deputy general huffed. All right, no matter what, without the poison, it won't work. Everyone, hurry up and think about what to do, the general said. What can we do? In the beginning, we only had an advantage in numbers and initiative. Now, these advantages are all gone. In addition, the local people are also against us. Unless we double the number of soldiers, I'm afraid there's no room for victory, the deputy general replied. We'll take a look at this matter. We should ask the higher-ups for their opinion. If they want to fight, they'd quickly send reinforcements and rations over. Otherwise, we will be forced to stop fighting. Stop the war? How is that possible? It had already reached this stage. If we stop the war again, we will have to compensate the Great Ming. The national treasury doesn't have any money. The general replied with a troubled expression. After that, he glanced at the map on the table. The passages that they could enter were all sealed, and there was no chance at all. In the end, he gritted his teeth and proposed, if you want to round up a gang, you must get its chief first. What do you think of capturing King Ning? Chapter 860 Lost Weight Again. The idea is not bad, but it's not easy to realize, the military advisor replied. We can only cooperate from the inside out, the general replied. The others looked at him in surprise and fell silent. This way, the spies they had hidden in the enemy's camp would probably be unable to last. This was not a smart idea. I wonder if the thousand-faced killer has succeeded. If she has succeeded, we can make use of her. The deputy general sighed. It's hard to say. Everyone, go down and pick a few smart and all-round scouts. If there's still no way out, we can only try to capture King Ning. After the general finished speaking, he sent a memorial to the emperor and asked for his opinion. At the same time, King Ning also received a letter from the emperor. After reading it, he was overjoyed. That's great. The emperor has already invaded the northern continent and taken the head of their king. He will reach the capital in a few days. He immediately called his generals over and told them the news. Did the emperor order us to attack the western continent? Yin Jiwu asked. No, but he asked us to prepare food and medicine. King Ning said. Everyone knew that there was a chance when they heard that. They rubbed their fists and got ready. After Zhouing heard this, she turned to the northern continent. Sure enough, She found Gu Chungrui and his people stationed in their largest city besides the capital. When she found him, he was changing the dressing of an injured person. You've lost weight again, Zhouing said after Gu Chungrui finished his work and returned to his room. Gu Chungrui paused momentarily before replying, but you're living a fulfilling life. How's the family? Are you doing well? Pretty good. It's just that the Western continent's ambitions are a little too big. After Zhouing finished speaking, she told him about the assassination attempt of the first prince. Gu Chungrui did not know what to say after hearing that. With the first prince's current status, he was destined to be in constant danger. He just hadn't expected someone to come to the palace to make a move. He replied, "Keep a close eye on him." "All right. It's getting cold over there. What is the emperor thinking? Does he want to fight all the way to the capital?" "He does have this intention. He intends to assist a puppet king to ascend the throne and take the northern continent as a vassal state." "That's pretty good. Do you need anything?" "Give me 2 more sets of inner clothes. It's too cold here. After washing clothes for a day or two, they won't dry at all." "Do you want to take a bath? I'll keep an eye on you." "Yes, please. We'll take a rest tomorrow anyway," Gu Chungrui immediately replied. He hadn't bathed for almost 2 months and felt he could get half a pound of mud off his body. After that, he disguised himself and closed the window. He hugged his dirty clothes and said, "I'm ready." Zhouing saw this and took him in. She saw his chapped face and smiled. "Hurry up and go take a bath. Put on a facial mask later." "Got it. Remember to give me my clothes tomorrow morning." After Gu Chungrui finished speaking, he carried the dirty clothes back to the villa. After a quick shower, he ate an apple and started washing his clothes with a washing machine. He even took the time to go to the bedroom to check on Guagua. Looking at his daughter, who had grown up a lot, Gu Chungrui felt a little guilty. However, when he thought of the soldiers struggling at the border, he could only kiss Guoguo's forehead and turn around to leave. When his hair was dry, the clothes he washed earlier were also done drying. He immediately changed a set of inner clothes and went to the warehouse door to find Zhouing. He hugged her and kissed her. "Babe, I missed you so much." Chapter 861, A Dream 1. "Come on." Zhouing pushed his head away and said, "What do you want to eat? I'll get it for you." She turned around and asked. As soon as she said this, she was pulled into his arms. Before she could come back to her senses, Gu Chungrui kissed her. Zhouing was stunned, but quickly raised her hand and wrapped it around his neck as she responded. As they kissed, someone took off their clothes first, and soon the two of them were entangled. After a while, Zhouing saw that he still wanted more, so she immediately stopped him. "Stop fooling around. You're so busy now. It's better to conserve your strength." "Ah, fine." Gu Chungrui kissed her reluctantly. "Give me a durian. I haven't eaten it for a long time." "No problem. Head on back first." Zhouing picked out a durian from the storeroom and took out a plate of strawberries. Then, the two returned to the villa and ate some fruit. After Guagua woke up from holding her pee, she saw the unfamiliar environment. She was stunned for a moment and cried, "Mommy, Mommy." Guagua is scared. Zhouing was shocked to hear her cries. After confirming that Guagua had woken up, she took a fist-sized strawberry into the bedroom and sat by the bed. "Don't be afraid. Mommy is here. Does Guagua like this?" When Guagua saw it, she was immediately attracted by the red and fruity strawberry. She took a bite and quickly finished it. She looked around and said, "Mommy, where is this? It stinks." "In a dream. You forgot that you were asleep." Zhouing picked her up and said, "In my dream?" Guagua looked at her with a face full of question marks. "Yes, we're in your dream." After Zhouing finished speaking, she took her to the toilet and carried her out. Guagua was stunned when she saw Gu Chungrui. "Daddy." Sigh. "My lovely daughter actually still recognizes her father." Gu Chungrui quickly put the durian in his hand into his mouth and stretched out his hand. "It stinks." Guagua turned her head. Gu Chungrui was instantly sheepish. He broke off a durian fruit and handed it to her. "It's not Daddy who stinks. It's this fruit that stinks. However, it's very delicious." Try it. Although Guagua liked the look of the yellow durian, she still pushed it away when she smelled it. Although Zhouing didn't like it, she knew it was delicious. She advised, Guagua, you can try it. If you don't like it, we won't eat it in the future. After Guagua heard this, she thought of the story of the pony crossing the river. In the end, she took it and tried to take a bite. Soon, her eyes lit up, and she started wolfing it down. Gu Chungrui was delighted when he saw this. He hugged her and said, as expected of my daughter, she has the same preference as me. After saying that, he sat down and hugged her as he ate. Just have enough, Zhouing said. It's late at night. If she eats too much, she'll have a stomachache. After saying that, she sat down and ate the strawberries. Don't worry, I'll keep an eye on her. Gu Chungrui nodded. After Guagua finished a piece of durian, he didn't give it to her anymore. Instead, he took her to rinse her mouth and coaxed her to go to sleep. After she fell asleep, Gu Chungrui went back to the bathroom to wash up. Send me back. It won't be good for me to stay here for too long. Okay, think about what you want to eat, and I'll send it to you tomorrow. After Zhouing finished speaking, she walked out with him. Bring me some chrysanthemum tea. There's a heated brick bed over there, and it's dry. All right, I'll bring you a few pears too. Sure, but not too much. Otherwise, it'll be hard to explain where they came from. After Gu Chungrui finished speaking, he kissed her again and said, All right, send me away. Chapter 862 A Dream 2. Zhouing soon sent him back and then went to do her own thing. After she was done, Gu Shengrui's clothes were also dried. She packed them up and prepared some chrysanthemum tea and pears for him. She brought Guagua out of the space afterward. When he woke up the next morning, Guagua glanced around the room and nudged Zhouing. Mommy, where's Daddy? Daddy? Zhouing was stunned. What daddy? Isn't your daddy not at home? Guagua obviously didn't believe her. She had clearly seen her father, so she shouted for Gu Chungrui loudly. However, Gu Chungrui was nowhere to be seen, so she immediately pouted and started crying. Mrs. Lin ran over. When she saw Guagua crying, she immediately coaxed her. What's wrong, miss? Are you dreaming? She probably dreamed of Chungrui. She called for him the moment she opened her eyes. After Zhouing finished speaking, she stood up and helped Guagua put on her clothes. Mrs. Lin helped her put on her boots as she said, Miss, do you miss Master? But Master is really not at home. He is fighting with the Emperor outside. He's at home, Guagua said with a straight face. She'll give up if you take her to look for him, Zhouing said when she saw that Mrs. Lin still wanted to persuade her. Mrs. Lin did not try to persuade Guagua anymore. She dressed her up in thick clothes and carried her out. When it was time to eat, although Guagua was still unhappy, she didn't make any more noise. It was obvious that she had admitted that she was dreaming. 10 days later, the emperor finally led his men into the capital of the northern continent. At night, the emperor called all the generals, including Gu Chungrui, into the room. Tell me, how can we better control the northern continent? He asked. Set up an embassy, detain hostages, and have our people monitor every level of the government office. The heir of King Xian said, although this method is good, it is easy to cause the people of the northern continent to rebel. When they kill all of our people, it will not be worth it. The heir of King An replied, in my opinion, there's no need for that. Open the pass and trade with each other. At that time, we can just hold the initiative in our hands. Zhou Huiming said, there's still a way. The northern continent mainly relied on livestock, so the annual grain production was not high. If they want to eat food, especially rice and wheat, they have to buy it from our country. Old General Zhou echoed. Chungrui, what do you say? The emperor looked at Gu Chungrui. In fact, Brother Zhou can directly open grain stores and restaurants on the northern continent. This way, the people of the northern continent won't be too rebellious, and it will be better for us to monitor them. We must also leave some people here to restrain the local officials. The other is a bank. If we can open a bank, we can better restrain them financially. Come on, I'm already so busy that my feet don't touch the ground. Why are you adding to my burden? Zhou Huaiming glared at him. You can find more stewards. Have you seen the emperor running around every day? Gu Chengrui said. The emperor nodded thoughtfully and pondered. Food and money. Food is easy to control, but money is hard to say. Indeed, the people of the northern continent, especially the herdsmen at the bottom, are still bartering. I'm afraid the use of the money house is not very big. However, food and restaurants are still a solution. Especially the restaurants. They can be used as a base to gather information. Old General Zhou added. Is there more? The emperor asked again. If we're talking about spying, I think inns and brothels are more suitable. The heir of King spoke up. Chapter 863 Triumphant Return. Although the emperor agreed with his words, he really didn't want to open brothels here. He felt that it was too cruel to women. He spoke up. I understand everyone's suggestion. After returning to the Great Ming, we will consider it carefully. Now, let's discuss how much the northern continent should pay tribute each year. Like the various prefectures of Great Ming, how about taking IO%? Old General Zhou suggested. At least 8%. Zhou Huaiming nodded. 10% isn't high, but it's not low either. If it's any higher, they'll definitely resist. The heir of King nodded in agreement. This 10% doesn't have to be limited to silver. For example, the fur that our Great Ming lacks, unique medicinal herbs, and various mineral resources could be considered. Gu Chengrui added. All right, since everyone has agreed, we'll negotiate with the king of the northern continent tomorrow. Over the next 2 days, both parties signed the subsidiary agreement with a tax of 10%. At the same time, the emperor also agreed to exchange corn seeds, sweet potato seeds, and chili peppers for them. At the same time, the emperor also obtained some unique potato seeds. After that, the emperor and his entourage stayed for about 10 days, waiting for the new king of the northern continent to stabilize his reign. The emperor and his entourage quickly returned to Great Ming after that. At the same time, the trade between the two sides was wholly opened. A local deputy general was left to guard the city, while the emperor quickly returned to the capital with old General Zhou, Zhou Huayu, and the others. At the same time, a pigeon sent a letter to the southwest, saying they could start a war now. After a while, the heirs of King Yin and King Xian led 50,000 troops, as well as the rations, herbs, and military doctors that Gu Chengrui had trained, to the southwest. At the same time, the great general of the western continent received a reply from their king, requesting that they continue fighting. As for their plan to capture King Ning, they had almost succeeded. Fortunately, the poisoning of old General Zhou had aroused the high vigilance of King Ning and the others, so they discovered and caught the spies lurking in their military camp in time. After King Ning learned of their plan, he was filled with anger. Therefore, they stocked up on grain, medicinal herbs, or people. The two sides instantly started fighting when the western continent's army appeared. When the son of King Yin and the others arrived, King Ning and the others had already opened the gates to the border of the western continent. After the two sides met up, everyone attacked the capital of the western continent. At the end of the year, on the 20th day, they captured the king of the western continent alive. With the emperor's decree, the heirs of King Xian and King Yin quickly supported a prince who was not on good terms with the king of the western continent to ascend the throne. The group returned to the border, with King Ning and the others returning to the capital with the same agreement as the northern continent. On the other end, when the emperor and the others returned to the capital, it was already close to the 12th lunar month. Meanwhile, Zhou began to prepare her New Year's gift for everyone. On one day, Zhou went to deliver the New Year's gift to King An's imperial residence. She had just returned and sat down when Niu Fugui came to report. Mistress, the emperor and the others have already arrived at the 10-mile pavilion. They are about to enter the capital. So fast? Quickly, get someone to prepare a brazier to welcome Chengrui. Zhou stood up and urged. Yes, they'll make the arrangements now. Niu Fugui nodded. After he left, Zhou got someone to prepare a bath, and even took out a set of new clothes for Gu Chongrui. At the same time, the soldiers cleared the streets, and everyone received the news. Therefore, the streets on both sides were quickly filled with excited people. Following that, the officials quickly arrived at the city gate under the lead of King Xian. As soon as the emperor and the others approached, the soldiers at the city gates immediately knelt and shouted, "Long live our emperor! Long live! Long live!" Immediately after, the officials knelt and said, "Welcome back, Your Majesty, long live our emperor! Long live! Long live!" Chapter 864 Understanding the citizens on both sides kneeled down and shouted, "Welcome back, Your Majesty! Long live the Emperor! Long live! Long live!" The Emperor was quite excited when he heard the cheers. The cheers were way louder and clearer when he ascended the throne. It seemed that people's hearts were now clear and pure. Even if you ascend the throne and become the Emperor, if you don't do anything, people won't really recognize you. He dismounted and said, "Everyone, please rise. I am here to thank you, dear ministers, and the people for your support in the rear. Let us build together a more prosperous and respectable Great Ming. My emperor is wise." King Xian bowed. Everyone shouted, "Long live our emperor! Long live your majesty! Long live! Long live!" The shouts got louder and louder, lingering in the sky above the capital for a long time. Not to mention the people in the capital. Even those in the suburbs heard it clearly. The emperor felt that he had grown a lot taller suddenly. At the same time, he also felt that the burden on his body had gotten heavier. He led the civil and military officials to the imperial palace amidst the crowd's cheers. When they arrived at the palace gate, they were welcomed by the royal family, including the Grand Empress Dowager, Gu Wanning, and the two children. After a round of greetings, the emperor stepped forward and picked up the first prince and the eldest princess. He kissed each of them and carried them inside. However, they did not walk far before he returned them to the nanny. He said to the Grand Empress Dowager and Gu Wanning, "Imperial grandmother, Wanning, take the children back first. After settling the matters in court, let's have dinner together tonight. I know you have important matters to attend to." "All right, well, go back first," the Grand Empress Dowager said. After that, she brought the three of them back to the harem. After the emperor gathered all the officials, he only officially announced the signing of the surrender treaty agreement from the northern continent. After asking about the matters in the court and confirming that there were no major matters, they dispersed. Everyone immediately surrounded the Zhou family's father and son, as well as Gu Chongrui, and asked them about the details of the situation. However, they were quite tired, so everyone only asked a few rough questions and let them go back. The eldest son of the Zhou family is not young anymore. "He must be 30 years old," said King Xian after they had walked far away. "Almost 30. If nothing had happened to the Zhou family back then, his child would have been over 10 years old." King An added, "I'm sure the Zhou family is going to be lively soon," King Xian commented. King An was stunned for a moment before he understood what he meant. Zhou Huayu wasn't too old. Now that he had no wife and children and had made an outstanding contribution, matchmakers would probably try their best to squeeze through the Zhou family's household. It seemed that he had to inform his daughter that she shouldn't get involved in this matter. Many of the officials heard their discussion and began to ponder silently, especially those who didn't want to send their daughters to the palace as consorts. Many of them had their eyes on Zhou Huayu. On the other end, Gu Chongrui had just walked to the door when Yo Fugue led the crowd and shouted, "Welcome home, master. It's been hard on everyone at home this year. They'll treat everyone to a drink tonight. It's such a cold day. You don't have to stand here to welcome us." Gu Chongrui looked at Zhou Ying and their daughter after he finished speaking. "It's fine. We only came out after you left the palace." Zhou Ying pointed at the brazier. "You've been away for almost a year. Step over the brazier and come on in." Gu Chongrui was stunned momentarily, but he still stepped over the brazier. "Daddy, Daddy, hug." As soon as he entered, Guogua immediately stretched out her arm to him impatiently. Chapter 865 Dinner Party. My guagua has grown taller again. Let daddy see if she has gained weight too. Gu Chungrui picked her up and teased her. Not fat. Guagua pinched his face. Yes, she's not fat, just heavy. Gu Chungrui smiled. After returning home, Gu Chungrui drank a cup of tea and ate 2 pastries. He took his new clothes and went to take a bath. Zhouing remembered Gu Shengrui's cravings and asked Qiuxiang to hurry to the market and buy a pig and 2 sheep. After some preparation, Zhouing decided to roast it, as it was convenient for everyone to sit together and talk. Of course, most of the remaining pork was marinated and prepared into cold dishes. She also readied some peanuts, celery, carrots, lotus roots, yuba, fungus, tremella, yellow flowers, and so on. She mixed them with a large number of cold dishes. When Gu Chungrui came out with guagua again, everyone was already busy preparing dinner. Zhouing turned her head and asked, "Let's see. Is there anything else you want to eat? If there is, tell me quickly." "That's good enough. But do we have fish at home? I haven't eaten fish in a long time. There seems to be a small yellow croaker. We'll go take a look." Zhouing turned around and walked toward the storeroom. On the way, she called 2 servants to help. Sure enough, there were quite a few in the storeroom. Zhouing had asked them to carry out 100 pounds of the small yellow croakers she had caught from her interspace. She looked around and found a few big bases. It was just nice for everyone to share. As for the wine, it was ordinary white wine. She had previously used rice, wheat, glutinous rice, and corn to brew it with her interspace's winemaking machine. Although it was not as good as the wine from her previous life, it was still quite good to drink. In the evening, Gu Chungrui and everyone had a hearty meal. Needless to say, people of this era were quite gluttonous. Everyone was still not filled after 2 sheep, 1 pig, and a large number of cold dishes and small yellow croakers, especially those 100 guards. In the end, she could only roast more steamed buns. When everyone was done, Guagua had already fallen asleep with Mrs. Lin. After Zhouing helped Gu Chungrui, who was drunk and groggy, to the bed, she washed up briefly and brought him into her inner space. After settling him down, she started to get busy. She was busy until dawn and brought Gu Chungrui out of her inner space. The next morning, Zhouing was still in a daze when someone pinched her nose and woke her up. She opened her eyes and saw Guagua. She was stunned for a moment. "Guagua, what are you doing? Mommy is still sleepy. Go play by yourself." "I'm hungry. I want to eat." Guagua pleaded as she pushed Zhouing back and forth. "Go find Nanny." "No, I want to eat Mother's egg pancakes. Others don't taste good." Zhouing sighed after hearing that. Why did she suddenly regret giving birth to this little thing? However, when she looked into Guoguo's big eyes, which were filled with anticipation, she could only get up reluctantly. After washing up, she brought her to the kitchen and made egg pancakes. She made a few more and gave her one first. "All right, go eat. Remember to have a bowl of millet porridge." "Got it." Guagua ate her favorite pancakes and immediately followed Mrs. Lin obediently. Zhouing resigned herself to her fate and made the rest of the breakfast. Gu Chungrui had just woken up when she re-entered her room. He saw her panda eyes and asked, "What happened? Why didn't you sleep more?" "It's all because of your good daughter. She wanted to eat pancakes so early in the morning and woke me up. Hurry up and wash your hands. It's time for breakfast." After Zhouing said that, she scooped out the millet porridge for the 2 of them and placed it on the table. Chapter 866 Giving the New Year Gifts. "Thank you for your hard work," Gu Chungrui said after he sat down. "You're welcome. By the way, after you come back this time, you don't have to run around anymore, right?" "No, but the Emperor wants me to train some more surgeons. But when the time comes, I can just summon them to the capital for training." "That's good. Guagua is growing every day. If you continue running around, you'll miss her growth." Indeed, she has changed a lot this year. Not only has she grown taller, but her words have also become more eloquent. She can run fast now. Carrying her is even more tiring than the next day. They'll take her back later. The 2 of them chatted while eating. Soon, The meal was over. After the meal, Gu Chungrui said, "During the morning court session today, the emperor rewarded me according to my merits. He rewarded me with 10,000 taels of silver and a hot spring manor. You also got a set of gold, jade jewelry, and 10 bolts of cloth." "Mine?" Zhou asked in surprise. "It's a meritorious deed to catch spies." He even gave less than expected. "That's good. To be honest, I've been envious of other people's hot springs for a long time. Now that we have one too, we'll bring Wugwa to the hot springs later." "No problem. I will definitely bring you two there before the new year." Gu Chungrui nodded in agreement. After that, the two chatted for a while. Once they received the reward, Gu Chungrui changed into his regular clothes and went to his hospital. Zhou wanted to take a nap, but she couldn't. Thus, she brought Guagua to deliver the New Year's gift to the Zhou family. However, she prepared 2 more jars of 20 pounds of homebrewed white wine before she left. As soon as she arrived at the entrance of the Zhou family's residence, she saw many people coming and going, primarily matchmakers. Zhou waited outside for a while until there were fewer people before she entered the residence with her gifts. She told Niu Lirong to talk it over with the Zhou residence's steward while she brought Guagua to the central courtyard. Could those people be here to matchmake Brother Huayu? She asked the tired Mingyu when they met up. "Exactly. They are here to matchmake my brother. There are even some who are matchmaking for my father-in-law. I'm exhausted. It looks like Brother Huayu is quite popular. Is there anyone suitable?" Mingyu shook her head. "I don't know. I just need to collect the list of women, and the rest is up to my father-in-law and brother." Zhou saw that Guagua couldn't sit still and nodded. "That's true. Oh right. Where's Zhuang?" His father carried him to the front courtyard, as his father is looking forward to meeting him. That's normal. That's his eldest grandson. But now that they're back, you can relax a little. I hope so. By the way, are you here to give me a gift? That's right. The sooner I send it, the sooner it'll be at ease. Nice. Give me another 100 pounds of wine later. There's no more. No more? That's right, there's no more. Everyone ordered more last year. Even after Wed more or less increased the quantity. There's no more left. Each and every one of them is more scheming than the others. If you need it for something, I can give you my share. No need for that. It's just that last night, my father-in-law and eldest brother had the wine, and I saw that they liked it, so I wanted to add more to my order. If there's no more, then forget it. It's fine. I'll give you 20 pounds more later. Thank you. Just as Mingyu thanked Zhou, a servant girl came to report to her. "Madam, another matchmaker has come to visit. Oh my God, this is endless. Just tell them that I have guests, and that they can come another day." "Don't. You shouldn't offend a matchmaker. Go out and meet her. I have nothing to do here, so we'll go back first." Zhou stood up and prepared to leave. Chapter 867 Hot Springs Manor 1. When Mingyu heard her say this, she did not try to persuade her to stay because she knew how talkative a matchmaker could be. If anything bad were to spread, it would be quite detrimental to her eldest uncle's marriage. She got up and sent her out. "Why don't I come to your house for a gathering soon?" "No problem. Take care." Zhou nodded. However, she felt Mingyu would not have the chance before the new year. The Zhou family was a newly promoted noble family, and it happened to be the end of the year. There would definitely be many people who would come to curry favor with them, so they would have very few opportunities to go out. Zhou Ying's guess was right. She had been busy for half a month and sent all the gifts to the various prefectures. However, Mingyu and her family did not come to visit, so she asked Kuehua to bring them the 20 pounds of wine she had promised. At night, after dinner, Gu Chungrui asked, "Babe, have you delivered all the gifts?" "So far, what should be given has been given. I'm not sure if anyone will come to give gifts after that." "What's the matter?" Zhou asked. "It's fine. I'm almost done with my work at the hospital. If you finish your work, we can go to the Hot Spring Manor and stay for a few days. We can also officially register it under our name. Then it's settled. We'll come back home after playing there for a few days." It's just in time for the year-end accounting. Okay, they'll arrange it later. We'll leave early tomorrow morning. All right, by the way, don't bring Lin Etienne when we leave this time. Let him accompany Shizhu. Got it. They'll listen to you. After Gu Chungrui finished speaking, he arranged for the carriages and manpower. Meanwhile, Zhouing prepared the clothes and toiletries for the family of 3. She also asked Kuehua to prepare 2 blankets. She also requested that Mrs. Lin pack up Guoguo's things. The next morning, the family of 3 brought Niu Lirong, Mrs. Lin, Lin Yifan, and 10 other guards to the hot spring manor. When it was almost noon, the group finally arrived at the manor. After entering, Gu Chungrui called the head of the manor over and asked, "Head who, right? Do the people in the manor already know about the change of ownership?" "Master, we received the notice from the government half a month ago. Go and inform them they can leave immediately after signing up for the next 2 days if they want to leave. If they stay, they have to be absolutely loyal to the Gu family. Otherwise, once I find out, they won't be forgiven. Don't worry, all the people with status in the manor have been sold." Those who are left behind, other than the original fringe personnel, are sent by the government to guard the manor like me. I know, but it's still better to ask. Understood. Head who nodded. Good. Our family of 3 will be staying here for 5 to 6 days. Arrange for food and accommodation. Yes, they'll bring you guys to settle down first. Head who answered and led them into the central courtyard, a large 3-entry residence, and said, "This house may look like it only has 3 entrances, but it's not small. The second and third entrances have 3 small courtyards side by side. Each courtyard contains 3 main rooms and 3 independent rooms. The west courtyard in the backyard also has a stable and a fodder room. There are also 8 rooms and a reception room in the middle." "How many people are there in the manor?" Gu Chungrui asked. "Except for a small family of 6, there are 10 manservants. When they have nothing to do, they would do some farm work, such as planting vegetables, caring for the fruit trees on the mountain, and raising the fish in the pond. By the way, the water in the pond is running water, so the fish in it is delicious. In addition, there are also 5 old maids who usually clean the house. If the fields are busy, they will also go to the fields to help." Chapter 868 Hot Springs Manor 2. In other words, there are a total of 21 people. What is your family responsible for? Gu Chungrui asked. My wife and daughter-in-law are in charge of the kitchen. My daughter is 16 this year and usually takes care of my granddaughter, who is less than 3 years old, at home. If you need it, she can help master and mistress run errands and be a servant girl. As for my son, he's a good farmer. So he's the one who does all the work in the fields. How big is this manor? Less than 30 acres, except for this house and the 2 acres of empty land behind it where vegetables are planted. There's also a pond of about 10 acres. There are fish and lotus roots in it, with the rest being a mountainous area with peach trees planted all over. The peaches in our village are big and sweet, a rare treat of this place. Some chickens, ducks, and geese also live in the forest. When spring comes, the pond will thaw, and the ducks and geese will enter the water. It will be much livelier then. Head who led them into the second entrance as he introduced the place. The second entrance was newly renovated when we came here. Of course, it was just reinforced and repainted. If you have any special requests, you can tell us. We can clean up and refurbish the place this coming spring. Let's take a look first. Gu Chungrui nodded, pushed the door open, and walked in. Although there was a brazier in the room, it was still cold. It was so cold that his face was nearly frozen. The structure of the place was simple. There was 1 big room and 2 small rooms, not even a storeroom. By the way, where's the hot spring? Gu Chungrui asked. At the back of here and beside the vegetable field with 2 separate courtyards. The interior is made of stone and is very clean. Okay, you go ahead with your work. We can settle the rest ourselves. What would you like to eat for lunch? Stewed goose. I haven't eaten goose meat in a long time, and you can decide the rest. Yes, then I will take my leave. After Headhu bowed, he turned around and walked out. After he left, Gu Chungrui checked the inside and outside of the house. After confirming there were no problems, he asked Niu Lirong and Mrs. Lin to help clean up the house. "I'm cold." Guogua shrunk her neck and said, "There are no heaters here, so it's a little cold. You have to wear more clothes." After Zhouing finished speaking, she asked Mrs. Lin to take out Guoguo's sheepskin cloak and put it on her. She also asked Niu Lirong to get one more brazier and more charcoal and place them in each room. "For the next few days, you can sleep in the west courtyard. I'm afraid the wing rooms here are too cold." "Yes." Niu Lirong and Mrs. Lin responded, turned around, and tidied their rooms. "It looks like I'll have to prepare floor heating next year, or else I'll have to build a brick bed, or it'll be too cold in the middle of winter." Gu Chungrui commented. "Yeah, let's make do for now." Zhouing echoed. "You keep an eye on Guagua. We'll see if there's anything else I need to clean up." After saying that, she walked into the other rooms. As expected, they were even colder. If they relied on the brazier alone, she knew it would not be able to warm everyone up in such a short time. She took out a set of batteries and a set of electric heaters from her inner space and placed them in a corner. When they were almost done cleaning, the food was ready. There was a plate of stewed goose, a braised carp that weighed about 2 pounds, a plate of fried eggs with mushrooms, a plate of fried garlic with bacon, a plate of fried coal with minced garlic, and finally, a plate of fried peanuts with cold spinach. There was also mushroom soup and some small flour rolls. "Master, mistress, is there anything else you need?" Mrs. Hu asked after serving all the dishes. Chapter 869, Hot Springs Manor 3. "That's enough. Did you cook all these dishes?" Zhouing asked. Because these dishes looked neat and smelled good, it was likely that the taste was great too. "I cooked the dishes and my daughter-in-law made the flour rolls." Zhouing nodded and said, "They look lovely. You may leave. Make sure the food for the guards is decent too. At the very least, make sure that there's a meat and a vegetable dish each." "I understand," Mrs. Hu responded and turned to walk out. After she left, Zhouing called Niu Lirong and Mrs. Lin over. "There's a lot of food here. Let's eat together." The two of them glanced at Gu Chungrui after hearing that. Seeing that he did not object, they sat down. However, the two of them did not eat much at first. Instead, they only took care of the family of 3. Only when they were almost done eating did they officially start eating. Zhouing put down her chopsticks and nodded with satisfaction. Although the dishes were not as delicious as those of the restaurant because of the seasoning, they were still great. At the very least, they tasted better than those cooked by Xiaxiang and Dongxiang. "Why are you interested in her cooking skills?" Gu Chungrui asked. "It's better that we don't separate their family." Zhouing shook her head. Gu Chungrui knew after listening that although Mrs. Hu's cooking was not bad, it was not to the extent that she was worth the effort to transfer her. He looked at Niu Lirong and said, "Ask for more charcoal from Mrs. Hu later for our braziers." "Understood." Niu Lirong nodded. She and Mrs. Lin cleared the table and sent the bowls and chopsticks to the kitchen. Meanwhile, Zhouing and Gu Chungrui brought Guagua out of the courtyard. Coincidentally, Gu Chungrui heard the sound of a hen laying eggs. He looked at Guagua and asked, "Let's go see the goose, shall we?" "Goose? What is it?" Guagua turned her head and asked. "You'll know when you see it. Gooses are amazing. Let's go for a walk." Gu Chungrui looked at Zhouing after he finished speaking. "Yes." Zhouing responded and wrapped Guagua tightly to avoid her getting a cold. Soon, the family of 3 walked up the mountain. As soon as they entered the mountain forest, they saw chickens, ducks, and geese leisurely looking for food. When the goose saw them coming, it immediately flapped its wings and pounced toward them. After Gu Chungrui and Zhouing kicked one away, Zhouing saw a bamboo pole at the side, so she picked it up and chased the goose away. At the same time, Gu Chungrui pointed at the big goose and said to Guagua, "Did you see that? That white one is the big goose. It's fierce. It wanted to bite us just now." The gray ones with flat beaks were ducks. They were the ones who made your favorite roast duck. As for the bright one, Chicken, big rooster. Guogua answered. Yes, it's a rooster. Tell me, what's the difference between a rooster and a hen? The rooster is beautiful and big. It has a red hat on its head. Smart girl. Take a good look at the similarities and differences between geese and ducks. The goose is big and white. The duck is ugly and has a flat mouth. Awesome. You remembered it so quickly. Take a good look again and see what the similarities are. Gu Chengrui said. Guogua looked at them seriously for a long time before saying, their legs are different from the roosters, right? Their claws are webbed. It's because they can swim. What is swimming? Swimming is moving in the water so that you don't sink. How do I not sink? Daddy will teach you tomorrow, okay? Gu Chengrui asked. Why can't chickens swim? Why is the duck the ugliest? Roast duck is obviously the most delicious. Why don't geese get angry at chickens and ducks? Chapter 870 Hot Springs Manor 4. As the questions continued, Gu Chengrui was finally stumped. Zhouing was amused, but she had no intention of helping him answer them. At this age, Guogua was curious about everything. She would ask whatever she found and bombard everyone with questions. It seemed like she would have to find the 100,000 Whys book and read it properly for her. Woof woof. The sound of a dog barking was heard. Erzhuang. Guogua ran over and shouted. Gu Chengrui was shocked when he saw the dog pouncing at Guogua. He lifted her up and kicked the dog to the side. The dog squeaked twice. After getting up, it continued to bark at them but did not go forward. Gu Chengrui looked at Guogua and said, look carefully. This isn't Erzhuang. Erzhuang is in another manor. Guogua looked at the dog carefully for a while. She finally realized the dog was much taller and stronger than Erzhuang. However, it was not as good-looking as Erzhuang. She huffed. Ugly. Yes, it's not as good-looking as Erzhuang. Gu Chengrui smiled. Imhu Ming. Greetings, Master, Mistress, and Mississippi. At this moment, a burly man in his 20s jogged over and stopped when he saw them. You are the son of Head Hu, right? Gu Chengrui asked. Yes, I am. You are. Oh, I'm here to pick some eggs and feed the chickens some water and food. Hu Ming said. How many chickens, ducks, and geese are fed here? 500 chickens and ducks, and 200 geese. However, there are not many eggs being laid at this time. We can't even collect a total of 50 eggs a day. It's normal, but I think it should be enough. Gu Chengrui then asked him about the situation at the manor. On the other end, Zhouing saw no danger after they chatted, so she walked up the mountain. She looked at the peach trees and saw they had been neatly trimmed. There was even a layer of straw wrapped around the trees. Obviously, they were well versed in the field, so she nodded in satisfaction. When she reached the top of the manor, she encountered a wall. Spreading out her divine sense, Zhouing saw that the mountain stretched further up, and it was endless and deep. At this time, young masters were hunting inside, so there was not much prey left inside the forest, and it was very safe. After a while, Gu Chengrui walked over with Guogua in his arms. This manor is really a good place to escape the heat in summer. Yeah, but we have to prepare mosquito-repellent incense. Zhouing nodded in agreement. Outside, Guogua pointed at the wall and wanted to walk out. It's cold outside, Zhouing said with a smile. And there are wolves that will eat children. Guogua was so frightened that she immediately retracted her hand. Gu Chengrui looked at Zhou Ying's teasing expression and knew she was lying. He did not expose her and just said, let's go. Daddy will bring you to catch fish. Fish? Guoguo's eyes immediately lit up. Yes, catch fish. Gu Chengrui smiled and carried her down the mountain. Zhouing chased after them. When they reached the bottom, they found a small boat not far away with all kinds of fishing nets. Zhouing brought some fishing nets with her and walked to the father and daughter side, passing the fishing net to Gu Chengrui. This is for you. They'll look after Guogua. After Gu Chengrui took it, he looked at Guogua and decided not to let her participate. If she accidentally fell in, his heart would ache for her. He found a few large stones on the side and threw them at the gap in the frozen pond that had been smashed. After smashing it 10 times, the hole was finally opened. A moment later, many fish spewed up like a fountain, causing Guagua to squeak excitedly. Chapter 871 Hot Springs Manor 5. Guagua struggled to get down, but Joing quickly hugged her tightly and said, "Just watch. It's cold down there, so you can't go down." Guagua shook her little body unhappily and clapped her hands again as she watched Gu Chungrue catch the fish. In the end, Gu Chungrue only got 2 large grass carp and a few small fish that had frozen to death. "Guagua, how do you want to eat fish today?" he asked.
Fish.
"Yeah. How do you plan to eat it?" Gu Chungrue asked. Guagua was in a dilemma and turned her head to look at Zhouing. "Except for the fish you picked out for her today," Zhouing said with a smile. "I usually make fish balls for her. I'm afraid she doesn't know how else to eat them." "I see. So let's eat fish balls tonight, with some winter melon slices and vermicelli," Gu Chungrue said. "Ball." Guagua immediately clapped her hands with a smile. "Yes, ball. Let's go back and make fish balls." After Gu Chungrue finished speaking, he picked up the fish and returned with them. When they returned, the two brought Guagua to make fish balls. When they were almost done, Zhouing boiled the remaining fish heads, bones, tails, and other scraps into a fish soup. She planned to make a big pot for everyone. Mrs. Hu, who smelled the soup, ran over and saw them busy in the kitchen. She hurriedly said, "Master, mistress, why are you doing it yourself? Just let me do it." "No need. I have nothing to do anyway. It's good to take care of the children and do some work," Zhouing replied. She added, "I've made the fish balls and soup. Later at night, you can stir-fry 2 more vegetable dishes and make some pancakes." "Ah, I will knead the dough now," Mrs. Hu replied and got busy. Mrs. Hu left the kitchen, went out, and called Mrs. Sun over. The two of them soon got busy cooking pancakes. On the other end, after Gu Chungrue prepared the fish balls, he brought Guagua back to the house. After dinner, Head Hu came in with 2 account books in the evening. "Master, these are the account books of the manor. Please take a look. I also have a question from the people you asked to stay or leave. If they leave, do they need to pay for their freedom? Is there anyone who wants to leave?" "Yes, there is a manservant. He wants to go home." "No need. Just give him his contract and let him go to the government office to change his household registration. Master is benevolent. I will tell him now. Go and tell everyone that this is their only chance. Those who choose to stay must pledge their loyalty to the Gu residents."
Yes.
Head Hu responded and turned to leave. After he left, Gu Chungrue glanced at the account books and realized that the main profit of the manor was peaches. Fish, chickens, ducks, and geese were also raised on the mountain, but their profits were low. It seemed that this was a manor built specifically for vacations. Then, he let Zhouing take a look. The two of them drank a pot of tea and washed up briefly before bringing Guagua back to her room. The temperature in the room had already risen, so Guagua also became energetic. The two of them played with her for a while. After she fell asleep, Gu Chungrue locked the door and windows, and the two of them brought Guagua into the inner space. As soon as she entered the space, Zhouing received a large amount of incense and countless prayers. After putting Guagua into the villa, she immediately walked to the storeroom to check. She did not expect the prayers to be from the people of the Western continent, including their new king. It was almost the new year, but their current rations could only keep people from starving to death, so they were praying for food. Oh, right, there were also prayers for rain. Most of the areas on the Western continent had not had rain for half a year. Chapter 872 Hot Springs Manor 6. She had food but was in a difficult position as she had never made rain before. At the thought of this, a piece of Mother God's memory was suddenly unsealed. It turned out that she could control not only the rain but also the wind, water, and all natural phenomena in the world. However, it depended on the range of her spiritual sense and the current conditions. For example, if there were no clouds, she could only control the water within the range of her divine sense. Moreover, the consumption of her divine sense was massive while doing this. Once overused, it would backfire. In severe cases, she could become crippled. This was also why Mother God chose to reincarnate after predicting the previous catastrophe. To put it bluntly, it was because she was envious of the various modern technologies and also because she lacked the strength. Thinking of the principle of rain, she immediately tried to look at the sky above the western continent. There were quite a lot of clouds, but the wind was also strong, so the rain came and went quickly. Not much rain fell on the western continent. She tried to block a light and thick cloud and controlled it to start raining. She did not expect to feel dizzy after holding on for less than 25 minutes. She immediately stopped, retreated, and said with lingering fear, "It seems that the power of nature is really irresistible." She tried to give the western continent some food, but knew it was insufficient. She could only give up and check the situation in other places. After seeing that everything was still stable, she immediately retreated, took a quick shower, changed into her pajamas, and went asleep. When she woke up again, she was woken up by Gu Chungrui. "What's wrong?" she asked when she met his worried gaze. "What's wrong with you? Why don't you look right? Also, it should be dawn outside now. We have to go out immediately." "In my dream," Guogwa said. Zhouing turned her head and saw Guogwa staring at her. "Yes, we're all in a dream now." Gu Chungrui paused momentarily, but he quickly understood what she meant and did not refute her. After all, Guogwa was too young. If she revealed their secret, the couple would be in danger. "Guogwa, wake up quickly. It's dawn." Zhouing saw this and got out of bed. She gave Guogwa a blanket and carried her out of her interspace with Gu Chungrui. As expected, it was already bright outside, and they could smell the chives of the meat buns. "Dad, Mom, Guogwa is awake." "I smell buns." "Yes, Guogwa is awake. Do you want to get up?" Zhouing asked. "Yes, Guogwa wants to get up and eat buns." Guogwa nodded. "All right, let's get up and eat the steamed buns with chives and eggs." After Zhouing finished speaking, she quickly helped her put on her clothes. After helping her put on her clothes, the husband and wife quickly got ready, too. Gu Chungrui opened the door and took the extinguished brazier outside to refuel. Guogwa also ran out. Zhouing immediately tidied up the bed and kept the heater and the battery in her interspace. When Gu Chungrui returned, the couple washed up. After he was done, Gu Chungrui asked softly, "Babe, are you all right? You don't look too good." Zhouing told him about her attempt to control the rain last night. Gu Chungrui hugged her tightly after hearing that. "Don't mess around in the future. That's something that even Mother God is afraid of." "I know. I also understand what's going on. I won't mess around anymore." Zhouing nodded obediently. She didn't say that after waking up from a nap, her head was still groggy. Chapter 873 Hot Springs Village 7. After the family of three finished their breakfast, the husband and wife brought Guagua to the vegetable field behind the house. The vegetable field was a circle of vegetables planted around the hot spring pool, and a simple shed was built with oilcloth. Because of the hot spring, the vegetables were quite fat and juicy. Mrs. Sun, who was picking vegetables in the vegetable field, said, "Greetings. Mistress, please take a look. Is there anything you want to eat at noon? I can just pick it back." Zhouing stepped forward to take a look. The shed was not big, but it was quite well planted. She plucked 2 large eggplants and 2 large, ripe tomatoes. 1 steamed eggplant with garlic and 1 scrambled egg with tomatoes. "You can arrange the rest."
Yes.
Mrs. Sun responded, put the vegetables she picked into the basket, and then got busy. Finally, Zhouing picked another cucumber and washed it in the bucket at the side. She divided it into 3 sections, and the family of 3 ate 1 section each. Then, the The family of three visited the hot spring, and Zhou and Gu Chungrui used disinfectant to clean the two pools. In the afternoon, after eating, they rested for a while. The family of three happily went to the hot spring. Zhou even took out a small swimming float and put it on Guagua. Guagua was so happy that she even splashed water on the couple from time to time. When Gu Chungrui saw this, he grabbed her and began to teach her how to swim. After a while, Guagua was like a small fish, swimming laps in the water. About 15 minutes later, Gu Chungrui pulled her out of the water, carried her to the shore, and quickly wrapped a towel around her. Water play. Guagua immediately groaned. No, just soak for a while. Look, your skin has turned wrinkly. Gu Chungrui pointed at her skin, otherwise, he wouldn't have pulled her out. Guagua pursed her lips and was about to cry. Gu Chungrui immediately started drying her hair. Don't cry. Otherwise, I won't bring you to play next time. But, no buts. Guagua looked at Zhou sadly. Guagua, be good, Zhou said. Let's play again next time. If you're sick, you'll have to take bitter medicine. She said to Gu Chungrui, don't wipe her down yet. Wash her hair with clean water before wiping it. After Zhou finished speaking, she took out the bathtub she had prepared for Guagua in her space. She mixed it with warm water and bathed her. Only then did she dry herself and put on her clothes. After she was done dressing her, Zhou immediately put on her cotton pajamas and sent Guagua out to Mrs. Lin. After they returned, Gu Chungrui placed some medicinal herbs in the hot spring pool that could promote blood circulation and remove blood stasis. The two of them soaked in it for a while. They later went to the inner space to shower before returning to the front yard. When Guagua saw them enter, she immediately harumphed and turned to run into Mrs. Lin's room. Miss said that she's angry that you play without her, Mrs. Lin said. Got it. You go and watch her. We'll make her something delicious. Zhou nodded. After that, she went to the kitchen with Gu Chungrui and made a serving of shredded apples and a serving of Guoguo's favorite coconut sago. Zhou didn't feed her directly after she brought it into the house. Instead, she sat at the dining table and scooped a small bowl for Gu Chungrui and herself. Chungrui, try it. Is the coconut sago I made delicious? There are also some cassava bobas in it. It's very chewy and delicious. It looks delicious. Remember to save another bowl for me. Gu Chungrui smiled. Chapter 874 New Year Gifts. Guagua, who was still angry in the room and waiting for them to coax her, heard Gu Chungrui's words and smelled the unique sweet taste of coconut. She could no longer be bothered to be angry. She immediately got off the bed and jogged out. Mrs. Lin shook her head when she saw this and continued to embroider a handkerchief. After Guagua came out, she saw the apple on the table and gulped. She looked at Gu Chungrui, who was eating the coconut sago with big mouthfuls, and went up to shake his leg. Daddy, Guagua wants to eat too. It's useless to beg me. You have to find your mother. The bowl and spoon are with her. Gu Chungrui raised her head and said, Mommy. Guagua immediately ran over and pleaded, Bring a chair over yourself. Mommy will get some for you. After Zhou finished speaking, she stood up and scooped a bowl for her. Guagua immediately turned around and moved the small rattan chair that belonged to her. She climbed up and looked at Zhou with her hands on the table. Zhou hugged her and sat down. There's no rush. Eat slowly. There's still apples. After saying that, she handed her a small piece of shredded apple that was now crispy like candied haws. It tasted sweet and sour after taking a bite. Guagua immediately threw her anger to the back of her head and started eating with a silly smile. Gu Chungrui shook his head when he saw this. At the same time, he made up his mind to let her eat all the delicacies in the world. Otherwise, she would be easily baited by some pig-headed boy one day because of a delicious meal. At night, Zhou went into her inner space to check on the situation on the Western continent. Due to her intervention yesterday, there were indeed some places that had rained. However, other than the area she had specially taken care of, the rest of it did not have much rain. At the same time, She primarily surveyed the living conditions of the people there. It wasn't exactly good, but most areas still had food. Therefore, she gave 2 months' worth of food, mainly cornmeal and brown rice, to those who could no longer afford to celebrate the new year. Additionally, she gave out some chicken eggs and other wild eggs stocked up in her inner space, ensuring that everyone had at least 2 of each. She didn't care about the rest. After that, the family of 3 had a good time in the manor for a few days. Nyo Lirong and the guards also took time to use the other pool to soak themselves in the hot spring. Before they left, everyone soaked in the hot spring once more before rushing back to the capital. After returning to the residence, Gu Chungrui rested for a while before going to his hospital. After Zhouing handed Guagua over to Mrs. Lin, she called Nyo Fuguwei and asked, "How has the residence been recently?" "It's pretty good. I received 2 New Year gifts from 2 families and returned one to each of them per your request. By the way, the gifts from Master's family have also arrived. This is the list of gifts. Please take a look." After Nyo Fuguwei finished speaking, he gave her a list. Zhouing took it and read it carefully. There were a bunch from Mr. Gu and also from the patriarch. Mr. Gu gave her the specialties of the north and south. Among them were 50 white rabbit skins and all kinds of bacon, snacks, tea leaves, and so on. Finally, there were some small toys for Guagua, as well as the core of the New Year gift, 6 pairs of pearl flowers. The patriarch's gift was much simpler. There were 2 sets of gold jewelry, 1 big and 1 small. He gave Gu Chungrui a set of stationery and 100 pounds of vegetable oil. After reading it, she smiled, put the letter away, and asked, "Is there anything else?" "Nothing else. By the way, the accounts of the various places have already begun to be summarized, especially the cake shop. General Zhou said it would only be tallied until December, and today's payment had already been settled. A total of 308,652 taels of silver. Chapter 875 Bountiful Returns, alright? In the future, you just have to remember the settlement date every year. Zhouing said, "Understood. If Mistress has no other instructions, I'll take my leave." Nyo Fuguwei said, "You may leave. It's the end of the year. Remember to be careful."
Yes.
Nyo Fuguwei nodded and turned to leave. Over the next few days, Zhouing saw that the weather was cold, so she asked the servant girls to help the people in the kitchen prepare the New Year's food, such as steamed buns, bean buns, rice cakes, as well as all kinds of braised meat, cold dishes, and more. This way, the people in the kitchen could relax for 2 days during the new year. She didn't stay idle either. Taking advantage of Gu Qinglin's return, she took out 5 cows, 10 pigs, 10 sheep, and a number of chickens and ducks from her inner space. She also began to prepare dishes for the new year. On the 27th day of the month, after Zhouing had prepared all the cooked food, she took out 2 roast chickens, 2 roast ducks, 2 large pieces of spiced beef, a braised pig's head, a pig's leg, and 2 large jars of wine to send to second Uncle Gu and the others. On the 28th, the accounts of the various manors were sent over, so Zhouing began to check the accounts. Not long after, Qiu Xiang ran in and informed him, "Mistress, Manager Gu is back. Do you want to see him now, or wait a little longer?" "Let him come in directly." Zhouing nodded. "Yes, mistress." Qiu Xiang ran out. Soon, Gu Zhang came in with a box and bowed. "Greetings, mistress. Have a seat. Did everything go well outside?" "Thanks to you. Other than spending some effort gathering the raw materials at the beginning, everything else went smoothly. These are the accounts from the capital and Pingyang residence. Please take a look." Gu Zhang placed a box on the ground. "How are the profits?" Zhouing nodded. "It's not a problem for sales in the capital to earn 1,000 taels of silver a day, especially during the period before the new year. However, Hangzhou province is doing a little worse, but still managed to get 1,000 taels a day before the new year. That's normal, as there are many rich families in the capital. Do you have any plans for next year?" "I plan to go to Dongyang province in the first half of next year. I'll build a large workshop in Qingshui town, our hometown in Dongyang. The transportation there is convenient and can cover 4 or 5 provinces. As for the second half of the year, I want to go back to my hometown, Fuzhou, Gu Zhang said hesitantly. Go back and take revenge? Yes, go back and take revenge. Some things should be done then. Go ahead. Even if you're involved in a lawsuit, ensure you stand on the side with more reasoning. Don't let hatred blind your eyes. You're still young. You can always start all over again. This lowly one will remember it. I will not act rashly again. You can leave. You can stay in the guest house and have a good rest. Yes, thank you, mistress. Gu Zhang responded and turned to walk out. After he left, Zhouing first took a look at the accounts from the manor. She later also checked the accounts of the rouge shop. She realized the rouge was selling quite well, at least not worse than any other competitor. The best products were the daily necessities, especially the soaps, shampoos, and hair tonics. They were the best sellers, followed by toners, moisturizers, and her special lipstick. After that, she carefully tallied the accounts. The capital's income in the past year was as high as 300,000 taels. Hangzhou province's income was a little lower. However, in just 2 to 3 months, they had also earned 50,000 taels, totaling 400,000 taels. After checking the banknotes and confirming everything tallied, she put them aside. She started to plan what new products she would launch next year. Chapter 876 Guest, Chengruwei. Do many people go to your hospital for skin disease treatment? Zhouing asked after dinner. Or rather, acne, spots, and so on. Gu Chengruwei immediately understood that she wanted to launch a new skincare product. After pondering for a moment, he said, Acre are rare cases, but some serious cases require a doctor's treatment. As for spots, there are quite a lot. However, it was still difficult to see them with makeup on. Therefore, if you want to improve your skincare products, you could start with anti-wrinkle products. There would be more people buying that. Anti-wrinkle? Zhouing nodded in agreement. In ancient times, women got married early and had children earlier. Naturally, they would start to worry early. Anyone in their 30s would more or less start to have wrinkles. So, such a product would garner a wider audience. I'll listen to you then, but you have to give me the prescription. She nodded. Don't worry, I'll give it to you after the new year. Oh, right. Sun Hongyang and Uncle Lu have arrived today. There's a high chance that they'll come to the residence for a gathering tomorrow. Get someone to arrange a table of high-class dishes. Uncle Lu is here? I haven't seen him for 3 to 4 years. Yeah, according to Brother Zhou, he transferred Uncle Lu here. After some discussion, he plans to send him to the northern continent next year to take charge of the business there. Ah, he's getting promoted. Yeah, it's not easy there. That's why Brother Zhou chose him. By the way, speaking of Brother Zhou, how's Zhou Huai's marriage going? Has it been decided yet? I haven't heard anything. Have you heard anything? No, ever since you guys returned to the capital, Mingyu has been so busy that her feet haven't touched the ground. I haven't seen her for more than a month. I guess there's no result. However, his marriage shouldn't be taken lightly, and it still depends on the emperor's wishes. I'm afraid the old general has to consider it carefully. Zhouing nodded after listening and threw it to the back of her mind. The next day, when Zhouing was almost done preparing the food, Manager Lu, Sun Hongliang, and even Zhou Weiming's family of 3 came. Zhouing immediately went forward and invited everyone into the house. Gu Chengruwei, who was in his study, heard the voices and immediately walked out. Brother Zhou, Uncle Lu, and Brother Sun, please have a seat. What tea would you like to drink? Zhouing asked. Chrysanthemum, I guess. I've been a little busy recently, so I'm a little hearty. Zhou Huaiming replied. All right, wait a moment. After Zhouing finished speaking, she asked Nioli to make a pot of tea. Ani, where's Sister Guagua? Zhuang looked around the room but did not see Guagua, so he ran over and pulled her sleeve. Guogua is playing with building blocks. Do you want to play with her? I want. Seeing this, Zhouing asked Qiuxiang to bring him and his nanny to the west courtyard. Oh, Guogua is so young, and you're letting her sleep alone? Mingyu asked in surprise. No, I've been busy recently and couldn't care for her. She ran to the west courtyard every day and stuck to Qinglin. It's good that there's someone to help you look after her. Mingyu nodded. Did you prepare roast duck for lunch? She asked. I want to eat roast duck. Of course. Not only is there roast duck, but there's also roast chicken. What else do you want to eat? Zhouing asked. Hurry up and tell me. Otherwise, it'll be too late. I heard that there's a Buddha jumps over the wall dish that recently came out. It's so seductive that people have lost their souls. As expected of you and your husband, you know everything about good food. However, I'm afraid you won't be able to eat it today. Buddha jumps over the wall is a soup that would take more than a day to prepare. That's why I can't make it, and the restaurant is all reserved. If you want to eat, I can only get someone to send a portion to the residence at noon tomorrow. Chapter 877 An Opinion. So troublesome. Mingyu immediately wilted when she heard that. There's no other way. It's not easy to make. If it isn't braised long enough, there won't be any flavor. Oh, right. They'll make baby vegetable soup later. Zhouing said. As for the Buddha jumps over the wall soup, you can eat it tomorrow. Baby vegetable? Yes, to put it bluntly, it's a soup made with cabbage as its core. They'll learn from you. Let's go. After Zhouing finished speaking, she took her to the kitchen and started to get busy. After Gu Chengrue and the others finished the formalities, they went to the study. Brother Gu, how do you think we can quickly gain a foothold on the northern continent? Zhou Huaiming asked after sitting down. That's right. If things go wrong and I screw things up, my old bones will die there. I can't say for sure, but you can start with two aspects. The first will be merchants. Merchants valued profits. As long as their interests were involved, they would not ruin your business, even if they didn't side with you. Secondly, the poor. No matter where they are, as long as you unite the people at the bottom, you can restrain those nobles very well. But dignitaries have money and power. They also hold the lives and deaths of people in their hands. Manager Lu commented. He had experienced this. If it weren't for the money in his hands, he wouldn't have been able to live so peacefully in Dongyang. What do you think of the beggars on the street? Useful tools. Then what if all the beggars in Great Ming united? Zhou Huaiming and Manager Liu's expressions finally changed after hearing this. Beggars were inconspicuous, but they walked the streets daily and sometimes knew more than specialized informants. If they were to join forces, it would be terrifying. So, don't underestimate anyone. Often, some small characters can achieve great things. However, you have to take things slowly on the northern continent. You can't let them see your intentions the moment you reach there. After the last battle, the northern continent might not recover for 3 to 5 years. Therefore, we can use these 3 to 5 years to infiltrate them slowly. Infiltrate. After Manager Lu heard this, he more or less understood his intention. During lunch, Zhouing and Mingyu didn't join them. Instead, they ate with Gu Qinglin and the two children. The dishes were simple. There were 6 dishes and 1 soup for each table. They were roast duck, roast chicken, steamed yellow croaker, steamed vermicelli, cabbage with mustard seeds, jellyfish salad, and finally, baby cabbage soup. After the meal, they chatted briefly before Zhou Huaiming and Manager Lu left. Sun Hongliang took the account book and went to find Niu Fugue. Meanwhile, Zhouing and Mingyu brought Guogua and Zhuangzhuang along and arrived a little late. After they left, Qiuxiang came over with a box. Mistress, this is the New Year gift left behind by Manager Lu. Oh, do you have a list? Zhouing looked at the heavy box and asked.
Yes.
After Qiuxiang finished speaking, she handed her a gift list. Zhouing glanced at them. They were leather, fox skin, mink skin, deer skin, and wolf skin. It seemed that Manager Liu had already made a trip to the northern continent. Put the things away, she said. Use the deerskin to make cotton boots for Guagua quickly. Yes, this servant will do it now. Qiu Xiang nodded and went away with Kuehua. She asked Niu Fugue to go to the restaurant personally and order 2 servings of Buddha jumps over the wall soup, giving one to Mingyu and the other to Manager Liu. In the blink of an eye, it was the afternoon of the 30th. The accounts for her mini restaurants, manors, and workshops were here. Chapter 878 Independence Zhouing opened the account books and saw that the total was 1.8 million taels. The restaurant and manor in the capital amounted to 1.2 million taels, while Qinshui Town's restaurant and workshop totaled 600,000 taels of silver. She asked offhandedly, "Does it mean that we earn less in the capital compared to last year?" "Yes, there's a drop in business in the restaurant here. If we hadn't come out with the new dish before the new year, Buddha jump over the wall soup, I'm afraid the revenue would have been lower. Does it mean that the customers are getting tired of the current dishes we're offering?" Niu Fugue didn't reply, but his meaning was clear. Zhouing paused momentarily before adding, "All right, why don't you call over the chefs here for the next 2 days, so I can teach them 2 new dishes?" "That would be great. With new dishes, our restaurant will be booming with business in no time." "I hope so. Remember to be more careful in managing the restaurant so that there are no problems." This lowly one understands. "All right, go on ahead. The bonus will be the same as last year, but remember to add Gu Zheng to the list. His bonus is 1,000 taels of silver." "I understand." After he left, Zhouing recalculated the accounts and checked that there was no error before preparing the red packets for everyone's bonuses. Night came, and everyone ate a scrumptious banquet. Everyone had the same dishes, but the only difference was that the main table had 8 dishes while the rest had 6. They sent off second Uncle Gu and his family on the second day of the new year. Gu Chengrui wanted to speak to Zhouing about something, but then he saw Guagua in Zhou Ying's arms. He suddenly recalled the many times that Guagua ruined his good times with Zhouing during the night. He went ahead and took Guagua in his arms and asked, "Guagua, how old are you after the new year?" Guagua chuckled and replied, "Guagua is 4 years old." "That's great. Shouldn't you sleep independently now that you aren't 3 years old anymore?" "What is independent?" "Well, you will be sleeping alone in another room. If you're scared, you can try it out by sleeping with Mrs. Lin." "No, I want to sleep with Mommy." Guagua struggled and wanted to get out of Gu Shengru's arms, but her efforts were unsuccessful, so she could only look pleadingly at Zhouing. Zhouing recalled the times that Guagua had woken up in her interspace and decided it was also time for her independence. Otherwise, it would be troublesome when the day arrived when Guagua realized that Zhou Ying's inner space was no longer a dream. "Come on, put Guagua down." Zhouing went ahead and took Guagua from Gu Shengru's arms. "Guagua, didn't you envy Uncle Chenglin sleeping alone just a few days ago? Why are you afraid of sleeping alone now?" "No, I want Mommy." Guagua hugged Zhou Ying's neck tightly and huffed. "Relax, before you strangle Mommy." Zhouing patted her back and waited for Guagua to relax her arms. "Mommy misses Guagua too. But when the eldest princess laughs at you for sleeping with Mommy when you're so old, don't come crying to me." "No, Nanan won't laugh at Guagua. She loves me." Guagua said it firmly. "Who knows? Don't you know that Yang Yang is also sleeping with his nanny?" Gu Chengrui added. "Ah, Zhuang too. He's also sleeping with his nanny. Remember your 2 older brothers from your uncle's side? They are sleeping on their own now." Guagua rolled her eyes at Gu Chengrui. She didn't want to sleep alone, so she crawled into Zhou Ying's arms and gave Gu Chengrui the side eye. Gu Chengrui wanted to persuade her further, but Zhou Ying shook her head. This was because she noticed that Guagua wasn't as adamant about this proposal as at the start. This matter must be taken slowly, or it might hurt Guoguo's feelings. Gu Chengrui saw that and said, "Daddy is sorry." "Okay, Daddy won't ask Guagua to sleep alone again." "Oh, right. There's a cute pony in the backyard. Do you want to take a look?" You're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.